The Time Portal, Chapter 1. When Theodore awoke from his unconsciousness, he found himself in a hospital bed. Where am I? How did I get here? What is that you're holding? And what? Now be careful there. You've been in a coma for a long time now. You mustn't strain yourself. Just get some sleep, and we'll get everything straightened out. With that, the doctor to whom he was speaking to gave him a shot, and soon afterwards he left the room. This gave Theodore some time to think. He looked around him and found that he was no longer in the castle's prisoners' quarters, but was now in a large room where there were many beds. Up on the wall was a big clear screen that was in front of him. This was all he could remember when he drifted off to sleep. When Theodore awoke for the second time, he had a little more time to look around the room. He soon discovered that he was hooked up to a very strange bag of fluid that was attached to his wrist. A little farther he saw what amazed him so greatly that he almost thought he had died and gone to a very strange heaven, or hell. As he watched the strange thing, it started beeping faster as he thought about the machine. Theodore began to feel a little lightheaded, so he laid his head down. As he was resting, he heard the beep slow down. It was no longer going beep, 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 beep. It was now going beep, beep, beep. Theodore looked around once more to see if there were any other strange things. Other than the strange beeper and the bag full of fluid that was attached to his wrist, he found a strange rectangular device. He picked it up and examined it. It had strange little buttons on it. He pushed some of them and found that nothing happened. He then saw a button that said on-off. He pressed it, and the once clear screen in front of him became lively. It began to talk and show pictures of people talking. Theodore was so frightened by this that he pushed the button again, which turned the screen off, and then threw the control back onto the table where he had found it. A few moments later, a nurse came in to see how he was doing. She looked at the end of Theodore's bed. She then looked at the small box that went beep. During the whole time, she recorded this with a writing stick. After she was finished, she went over to Theodore and asked, "And how is our little mystery patient? By the way, do you have a name?" "In answer to your first question, I am fine. Besides, not knowing this place I am in, or why I am here, I am still fine. To the answer to your second question, my name is Theodore." With that, she recorded what he had said and left the room. Soon, another person came into the room. He walked over to Theodore and said, "Well, Theodore? I hear you have a few questions that need to be answered. Well, why don't we have a little chat? First, answer a few questions that I have, and I will answer any of your questions, as best as I possibly can. Okay?" Theodore shook his head in agreement, and the two began to talk. "My first question is, where do you live?" "I live in Luton," said Theodore. "Yes, that much we know, for we found you at the ruins of the Castle of Windsor. By the way, what were you doing down there in the rain?" Just then Theodore remembered the whole incident. But the castle? In ruins? How could this be? The last thing Theodore could remember was going through the time portal a little too late. Maybe... No, it was impossible. Suddenly, Theodore burst out saying, "What is the year?" The doctor, who was a little taken back by this sudden outburst, cleared his throat and said, "Why, the date is 1989. This was too much for Theodore to handle. At the slightest thought of it being 1989, Theodore lost all hope of helping Calazar. He then slumped back into his bed, where he just stared blankly at the wall in front of him. The doctor waved his hand in front of Theodore until he looked at him again. "What is the matter? You look as though the end of the world is tomorrow." Theodore sat erect and looked at the doctor with a little curiosity and said, If you would tell me what happened to the Castle of Windsor, I would be ever so happy and grateful. Well, I guess we have some time. It all took place about 500 years ago. Yes, go on, Theodore interrupted. The doctor cleared his throat again. As I was saying, about 500 years ago, there was an old wizard by the name of Calazar. He and a young apprentice by the same as yourself, actually, were caught while looking for the mythical time portal. They were sent to the dungeon, and while they were down there, they supposedly found the time portal that they were looking for. It is then said that the apprentice and the wizard entered, but the apprentice entered too late and was transported to the future. But I think... Please, I want to hear how the castle was destroyed. Well, okay. It is said that the wizard went a little forward in time also, but only by a year or two. It was said that he was so mad at the king, who was Windsor at the time, that he raised an army and destroyed the castle and killed the king. He then disappeared on June 2nd of the following month. At the news that was just said, Theodore sat up in bed, as if by some strange power he was pushed. After the doctor finished the rest of the story, he gave Theodore another shot to let him get some rest. When Theodore awoke, he found a nurse at his side with a tray of food. "We've got to eat sometime, now don't we?" Theodore nodded very weakly and sat up. The tray was placed in front of him, and he began to eat it with haste. He had never tasted such strange food before, and at the moment he did not care what kind of food it was, for he was just hungry. Now, don't gulp too much of it down. Would you like to watch a little telly while you eat?" Finally, Theodore stopped eating and looked at the nurse in a puzzled manner. "What is telly?" "You know, television." "Ah, come on, don't tell me you have never seen a television before." "It is the big screen over there." With that, she pointed to the clear screen that Theodore had thought to be possessed when he had pushed the button on the small module. The nurse picked up the module and pushed a little button. The screen lit up and pictures came onto the screen. Theodore was so frightened that he dove under the covers. She flipped through the channels until she came to a children's channel. On it was a cartoon about a mouse that could fly. When Theodore finally decided that the screen would not hurt him, he came out from under the covers. He soon became so interested in the strange piece of entertainment that he didn't even notice the nurse leave. Hours had gone by, and finally the doctor that had spoken to him earlier came in. "Still up, are we?" "It is time we turned off the television and got some sleep." When Theodore heard this, he groaned and turned over to shut the screen off. After it was off, he yawned, and without a shot from the doctor, fell into a deep sleep. End of chapter 2. Or actually chapter 1, I'm sorry. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying this story. Next week I'll try to have chapter 2 for you. Until then, tschüss, arrivederci, auf Wiedersehen. Good evening, good night, good morning, good day, whatever you're having. Enjoy it. And we'll see you then. Bye.